Okay, this podcast is going to talk about some Linux networking stuff. So when we loaded our systems, we specified some networking information, and that networking information got written to a file, a couple of files. The first file we'll look at is etc sysconfig network-scripts ifconfig eth0. This is where the information about the IP addresses got stored, right? Do you want it on at boot? Yes. You know, boot proto, none. We set a static IP. If we were doing DHCP, it would say DHCP here. Hardware address, there's a MAC address. IP address, prefix, gateway, DNS1, default route, yes. Blah, blah, blah. This is stuff that this is the file that gets read when your system boots to set your IP address. So this is where it pulls the information from at boot time. Another file we want to look at, resolve.conf. This contains domain name information and name server information. So if you ever want to know what your name server is, you can look in resolve.conf. There's also another file. I'm not sure if there's anything in it right now. Etc sysconfig network. Yeah, there's stuff in here. This says networking equals yes and turns on networking. If you set that to no, then networking wouldn't start. And it sets the host name, and it has the default gateway in there as well as in here. So these files get read at boot time. So what if you want to just know what your IP address is currently set to? Well, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, actually just kidding, not really that long, Ifconfig has always been the interface configuration tool for Linux. You can use Ifconfig to make changes. You can use Ifconfig to set things. So say, if, for example, if I wanted to change the IP address of E0, I could do ifconfig E0, and I could put an IP address, and I could put a net mask, and then I could hit enter right there, and that would change. Actually, that's not going to work because there's no 0. That would change the IP address. If you make changes with ifconfig, those changes are not permanent. So if I were to change my IP address right now with ifconfig and then reboot the system, then when it came back up, it would read those files again, and what in the information in those files is what would get set to my IP address. So best case is if you are making permanent changes, go edit the files and change it and then reboot the system. Or if you want to make the changes using ifconfig, you can do that. But go back and edit the files behind yourself so that when you reboot the system, it comes back up with the correct information. I say ifconfig is a command that's been used forever because, oh my gosh, this program's obsolete. So apparently they don't want you to use ifconfig anymore. In theory, in future versions, it could be removed. I, for one, am going to keep using ifconfig until it no longer exists. But the new command is IP, and then with the IP command, you can do lots of things. You can look at IP links, IP adders, IP routes. You can look at all kinds of stuff with the IP command. So if you just wanted to look at your addresses, you could do IP adder list, and that'll show you your IP address information. Right, there's my IP and net mask. You can also do something like IP adder stats or something, -s. No, IP link -s, I think it was. IP link shows you link layer related stuff. Fine, man, IP. Man, ifconfig is where I saw this at. So IP-S link. Okay. Let's do IP link first. IP link shows you link layer related stuff like MAC addresses and such. MTU. If you do IP-S link, that shows you packet sent errors and stuff. So those commands can replace the ifconfig command, but like I said, I'm going to keep using ifconfig until it stops working. Another thing we want to know about is routes. Traditionally, you can always use the netstat-rn command to look at your routing table. So that all zeros route is your default route, right? Here's your connected network route for the 192.168.240 network. And this is just the auto configure network that we have a route for some reason. So that's getting your routing table using netstat. Back in the olden days, you could use route add to add routes. So if we wanted to, one thing you guys do a lot is mess up your default gateway. So if we wanted to update our default gateway or add a default gateway, we could use route add default gateway and then the IP address of the gateway. I'm not actually. Oh, I did actually run that command. It's already set to that, so that's why I got an error. I wasn't going to run that command because if I changed the gateway, it would mess things up. So that's the old way to do it. The new way to do it is the IP route command. You can do IP route list, and that shows you the routing table. And you can also use IP route to make some changes. So I think that covers what I wanted to cover related to networking. Yeah, that's what I want to cover related to networking. There's some advanced things we're probably not going to get into this course. Like if your Linux box had more than one interface, you could basically turn it to a router by enabling IP forwarding. So if you wanted to know how to do that, just Google, enabling IP forwarding on Linux, and you'd be able to find that. But I don't think we're going to go into that.